Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. It's Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Happy Kentucky Downs opening day for those who celebrate, and also for those who abstained due to takeout hikes and I don't know, whatever else is going on. Also, happy One Piece release day on Netflix. That's what my wife is currently doing. She's watching the live action One Piece. And my guess is she's going to be a complete degenerate and be up till 2 o'clock in the morning and watch the entire first season in one sitting. She claims she's not going to, but then she also claimed that she's going to rewatch the first season this weekend. So who knows? Mark, what do you know about One Piece?
I've never heard of it. That's the first time I'd ever heard of it is you 30 seconds ago mentioning it. What's it about? Give me some background here.
I have no idea.
Okay, so we're both equally knowledgeable about One Piece.
Pirates.
Okay.
It's about pirates and
is there treasure?
Fruits,
is it buried?
And finding a treasure. Actually, noted weeb Caleb Knight here could probably explain it a little bit better.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about bathing suits when you first.
Talking about bathing suits. Oh God.
Where's Greg and Steven, or when you need them?
Yeah.
I do see Steven in chat. He could probably.
Yeah, Steven says he needs a synopsis of the 1,500 episodes. I think they're only like 1,100 episodes. So I think I don't think they're at 1,500 yet. But my wife has watched the entire series, I think, like 3 or 4 times at this point, and that's 1,100 episodes. So you can do the math. But
that's
still
a
going.
lot of. Are they 30-minute episodes?
Yep.
That's
still going.
That's scary.
Oh, Caleb got a haircut.
I did. I had to find a new barber up here. It's always an anxious moment, but they did all right.
Doesn't every kid get a new haircut first day back to school?
Yeah, that's kind of the rule, right?
I mean, isn't it it's a thing, right? Like they all do.
Yeah. Caleb, you have a bit of a history with people who cut your hair. Was this a male or a female who cut your hair this time?
This was a male.
Okay, I was just curious. Oh man. So Mark, you got something going here at Del Mar. It looks like we're at race 8 here. Race.
I have a double live to the 6 and the 10.
The 6 and the 10, the 22-1 and the 5-2.
That's how I roll.
I mean, you left the 2-1 off at least.
I did not play the chalk. Yeah. Although the chalk wasn't the chalk on the morning line. I did play the morning line chalk. No, I guess I didn't even. The 5 was the morning line chalk. It looks like. So I played neither. Completely out of form for me.
Have you played anything this week, Caleb?
I have not.
Wow. How weird does that feel?
It almost feels more weird to come back and play. Like, it's amazing how quickly you adjust when you're like underwater with other stuff going on. That like today I wrapped up things a little bit early, and I'm just like, I don't want to look at racing, and I came back and I took a nap. So it's amazing how quickly you can move out of it, in and out of habits, whereas I was playing 4 or 5 times a week not that long ago.
Yeah, it's funny lately, like normally it's like work that tilts me. I think for most people, right, work is probably a big source of frustration for them. Caleb, I got killed again today, horse racing, which has not been any different than the last couple weeks. So whatever. But last night I played one game of League of Legends, and I was playing ADC bot lane, and I got a bot. I got a Tarek bot that literally just followed me around and didn't do anything. I won lane 1v2, and the rest of our team just completely got destroyed. I played one game today, and it was basically a similar story. So It's not work that's tilting me now. It's my outside activities that are tilting me. Yeah, look at this. Foxhound right here
knows.
saying, "Imagine playing League to cure tilt." Yeah, it's not been good.
Was the Tarek
Steven,
better than Steven?
the Tarek was better than Steven.
Okay.
And unfortunately for Mark, he leaves chalk off, and the chalk booms him here.
Yeah, I said this is not helping me for not using chalk in every single point ever. I got the price in the previous race and just couldn't find the chalk on this one. What are you gonna do? It was a really shitty race.
Yeah. Uncle Sully asking if that's a LARP version equivalent of playing fantasy football. Oh, no, that's not even close. It's even nerdier than that. But if you are looking for a fantasy football league, we do have one. One Stephen Fox is running a fantasy football league that is open to new people. We are going to be doing a Survivor League, also known as a Guillotine League, which basically means the lowest score every week gets eliminated, and their entire team gets put on waivers. And then you basically the teams that survive bid on the remaining players. So there was a podcast I listened to last year. I don't know if it's still around, but it was a ESPN fantasy podcast. Matthew Berry left, so but they used to do this league, and like in the first week, the person who owned Patrick Mahomes was dead last. So Patrick Mahomes was like available on waivers week 2. So you get crazy fun stuff like that. But yeah, check that out. When I see Foxhound in chat, I actually asked him a question earlier today because football season is starting back up. And not to start the stream on a really big down note here, right? But with a lot of the nonsense kind of going around with horse racing lately, I think I might take a bigger swing at sports this year. I think I might move some of my my handle. I obviously don't know a damn thing about sports. I was actually asking Foxhound really like basic questions about sports betting. So, I'm gonna dip my toes in there a little bit. I always do March Madness and stuff like that, and a little bit of college football, like on the bowl games and stuff, and NFL. But I think I'm gonna take a little bit more serious look at it this year. And then Caleb, I know you're sidetracked with real life stuff. Being a smart boy, and then Mark, you're probably I guess the only person who I don't know, the Saratoga meet has not gone, I think, how anybody kind of expected. I think Del Mar is still gone pretty well, but I know you're not a big Del Mar guy. Has anything that's happened the last couple of weeks or anything that you think that's gonna kind of affect your handle going forward? I know this is generally the lighter part of your year coming up.
Yeah,
but do you think going forward it's going to affect anything?
It may actually. I guess if the whole, I don't know. I mean, we've had this conversation more times than quite a few times actually. And it's a thing of you always hope that NYRA is a little better than every other circuit. You always hope that the classier places, or the classier establishments take better care of their fans, their horses, and everything else. And this summer was terrible. And just to kind of see that might not be the case. So I don't know. I think I'm going to be a little pickier, a little more selective on where I'm playing. There's definitely some. I mean, I always really enjoy fall turf duct. I would imagine with how many Saratoga races were canceled on the turf, you're going to see really good fields there. Some things like Meadowlands turf are always fun to play, but yeah, I might reconsider, volume and how much I'm firing away at things I don't really have a good feel on.
And like Caleb, I know for sure, with I mean, you're going to be busy as hell coming up, but do you still like what do you think? You think you're still going to fire away at Breeders' Cup and then just basically that's it, or?
Yeah, I'll have to wait and see just how. I mean, for my schedule with being back in school again, just kind of see how that shakes out. But yeah, the horses are definitely a secondary or priority for me at this point. Just given real life stuff that's going on, trying to take advantage of being in a new city and all that stuff, but also it hasn't been as fun with the Saratoga issues and with everything going on. I mean, I haven't felt compelled to come back and download the forum. So yeah, I probably will try to do Breeders' Cup. I always enjoy those 2 days due to the European influence. That's always a fun weekend. But I can't say for sure. This weekend I'll probably poke around a little bit because we do have a long weekend with the holiday. But I think that relative to any other year, I will be very, very light.
Yeah,
it's kind of, to Caleb's point, I mean, it's closing weekend to Saratoga, and I'm not going to be playing Saturday or Sunday. I'm up in northern Vermont hanging out with my sister. Have no intention of opening a forum. May play a little Monday, but I mean, for me, that's a rarity. So I do enjoy Breeders' Cup. I do enjoy some of the bigger European days, like something like the Arc Day and those types of things. But I think I'm going to be a little more selective.
Yeah, and Charles mentioning sports betting is like betting chalk. Every race can't do it ever. And yeah, it's tough. And look at Matthew Bickey shows up and he says we're a buzzkill. All right. Now I will say that you are one of the few people who I know 100% is boycotting Kentucky Downs. So, if we want to talk about buzzkills, maybe look in the mirror a little bit, but
I'm
just joking.
I'm also boycotting Kentucky
Downs.
Oh,
I'm not, but that's also because
we kind of assumed that, but
yeah, but honestly, on a more positive note, Caleb and I got up to Saratoga, spent time with Mark, spent time with Foxhound, other people in chat, other people we know, met up with Andrew and stuff. I mean, that's still a blast, right? That was still, and it. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I don't think any of us did very well that weekend. But I mean, it's still fun being on track. I mean, this last weekend, I went up to the OTB to meet up with Emily from Optics and some of the Hawthorne people. Rhonda is great, always takes care of us up there. And, we had a great time, being there. And I'm going back to Hawthorne on Monday, meeting up with Ryan Dickey and Nance and, seeing Emily again. It's going to be a good time. And so I think that stuff is still going to happen. I'm going to Kentucky Downs in a couple of weeks, or next week actually. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like I do think that this summer really kind of it lost a little bit of the luster. I think Charles did bring up a good point. And it's something that I was actually talking to Ed DeRosa about it a little bit earlier this week. I was talking to the people at Hawthorne about it. I'm like, that's what you got to highlight, right? Yeah. Like people like betting sports. Like I said, I still enjoy it. It's fun, but you don't cash 12,000 on a $24 ticket like you do playing horses. So, if I do move most of my handle over to sports or more of my handle to sports, it's definitely going to take some getting used to. But to Matthew's point, let's not be negative. Let's be positive here. Kind of positive. Saratoga Saturday card. We've seen this, and this is not necessarily I guess this is not necessarily just a Saratoga thing, and I pulled up the wrong race. Race 3. I mean, we're not going to talk about this race, but we're getting these 4-horse stakes races, and this is a grade 2. I mean, this is just tough, and with I don't know, I had a hard time kind of finding stakes races to talk about here, especially with Del Mar's card that looked pretty good. But I did think that this Jockey Club Gold Cup was actually a pretty interesting race, depending on how you look at it. Mark is making the face, which means that Mark must love the chalk here. I don't really care for the chalk in this spot, which makes this race just much more interesting. I don't know, Mark, you're making a face here. I mean, Proxy's 2-1. What is Rattle and Roll? 9-5. He's the favorite. I mean, what you think it's between those two, and that's it?
Yeah, I think it's between those two, and that's really it. I think one of those two, one of those two wins. I had a hard time finding a price here. I think it's pretty logical, and I mean, obviously I have a beef with Jockey Club Gold Club, that Jockey Club Gold Cup. My God, that's a mouthful. Being moved to Saratoga in the first place, and then I understand why they did it from a Breeders' Cup Breeders' Cup timing standpoint, but this is just not that interesting of a race. I think it's a 2-horse race. You probably have to pick one of the two of them, in the pick 5 or pick 4 or something like that. And I don't know. I think if I'm throwing darts, I'm probably taking Rattle and Roll because I always kind of thought he was a okay horse. I just don't like this race at all.
You know who didn't think he was an okay horse long time ago? It might have cost me some money.
You?
Josh keeps confusing the source with Double Thunder.
Oh, Double Thunder! Damn it!
How did you confuse?
They were in the same race, and I think I had both of them, and Caleb talked me out of one of them. Caleb, what did you kind of land here? You kind of with Mark that the favorites look tough here.
I agree with him that Rattle and Roll looks tough. I don't like Proxy. If Proxy wins, I don't need him. I thought it was weird they sent him to the lead last time, but I don't expect that to happen again. That was maybe just a clever ride, I guess, against a field that was just completely overmatched. But Rattle and Roll, I think, is he's just really, really good as a 4-year-old. He probably ran the best race in the Stephen Foster. I mean, trying to close from fairly far back in that speed favoring strip that was won by Westfall Power prior to his retirement anyway. So, yeah, I think Rattle and Roll is probably the horse to beat in here. He looks like one that's going to really enjoy the 1.25 miles. I mean, he has 2 pretty nice races going 1 mile and 3/16. So it's tough because after him, I mean, if I'm not really for Proxy, I really looked for who's one other horse or 2 other horses I can try to get to. And I struggled to land on anybody with confidence. I did sort of, Matthew mentions the 6, 7, and 5, and the 6 and 7 were the 2 that I would probably have as C's, both of the Woodbine shippers. I think the 6 probably has more of a tactical advantage and maybe more upside, but the 7 has 2 good races on dirt. I just don't really know what was behind him in those races. But nevertheless, I think that the 6 and 7 would be the 2 horses I might have on one ticket if I was going to go against Rattle and Roll, but I'm probably not going to spread too deep. It's 4 and then maybe a little bit of 6 and 7 for me.
So, hey, Caleb, with a 7, don't you kind of scratch your head if maybe those were races that were moved up by the offgoing? I mean, the horse has pretty massive Tomlinson figures, and both of those were across, a good surface and a sloppy surface. So it's just a wonder if, I mean, obviously, I don't think he's ever caught dry dirt, so we don't really know until we know. But do you kind of wonder if that was a little bit sloppy, did those figures?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, especially considering he was forward in both of those races over less prestigious racetracks over the slop. I mean, I think that's fair.
Whoa. Who disparages Mountaineer like that? It's your home track. Come on.
I know. I think it's fair, but it's a 4-year-old horse that has no fast track starts and should be able to handle it. I mean, he maybe just likes dirt better than the synthetic or the turf. I don't know. At 15-1, I'm willing to risk that he can replicate those efforts over a fast track, but he probably not only needs to replicate, but actually improve to take this down.
I can't believe Mark is on a McPeak horse.
I'm an Ellis Park shipper of all things. I mean, that's just how bad this race is. I mean,
I don't know. I ended up taking the 2 horses that ran in the Suburban here, the 2 and the 5, Clapton the 5, as well as the 2-horse Unbridled Bomber. And when I kind of took a look at this race on optics, if I can, what race is this? 11. Yeah. When you kind of look at this race on optics, it's kind of a bit of a mess. And I really do think a little bit that that last race by Proxy kind of did muddy stuff up a little bit. But I started thinking about it, and I know a lot of these horses have gone 1 mile and 1/8, so probably 1 mile and 1/4 is not not too bad. But both the 2 and the 5, I think, have very, very good races going 1 mile and 1/4. Specifically the 5, finished second in a Suburban to Mark's favorite horse in training right now, Charge It. Was pretty far behind, but
Second favorite. Second favorite.
second favorite. Okay.
Yeah.
I will say, it's going into the Chad Summers barn, so you definitely do not expect this horse to move forward. But I think if he runs that last race, I think that puts him right in here. I think of the short prices, Rail and Roll does make the most sense, but I think the 5 here, Clapton, based off that last race, made a little bit of sense. And then the 2, Unbridled Bomber, has shown some speed going a mile, with Jose Ortiz 3 back there at Aqueduct. Last time did sit a little bit off the pace, did have a little baby kind of sort of Z pattern going from 3rd to 4th, and then, passing one horse, but still finished 8 lengths off. But I don't know. I thought that both these horses, going the mile and a quarter before and running pretty decent, made some sense here. Obviously, Proxy had that second in the Santa Anita handicap that probably fits in here. But I don't know. He hasn't really been that impressive since winning that Oak Lawn race. The Stephen Foster, he was 3-1. Finished 8th by 6 lengths. And won a race that he should have won at Monmouth. Wayland Springs had come out of that race to win next out. So, maybe he beat something there. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to get a little contrarian here, trying to get around the 1 and the 4, and maybe I'm hashtag too cute in here. I'll take a chance with the 2 and the 5, especially with a lot of the big name jocks, not being in town. I know Irad picks up the Chad Summers mount, which I think is just, I don't know. That kind of stuck out to me a little bit as well. Maybe kind of relook at Clapton here a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to get too creative here in a race that's pretty chalky.
I was gonna say, because we're experts at talking, 8-horse races to death. I thought the one horse, if you wanted the other horse in here that was a little interesting, was the 8-horse, the little bit more lightly raced Bright Future, horse that was pretty competitive going a mile. And then they decided to stretch him out to 1.5 miles, which seems like a really, I understand giving his pedigree, he is a Curlin.
Yes.
Yeah, there it is. He is a Curlin, so obviously you should get the distance, but that's just a massive class jump for him. And Next was very, very, very impressive in that race. And then they came back in a more reasonable spot, put a decent jockey up on him last out, and he won in that nice optional 62. Next logical steps is to kind of see what they have and put him in a stakes company. He does seem to be improving figure wise. I don't really know how much more is left in a 4-year-old at this point in the season, but I thought it was a little bit interesting for a more lightly raced horse that we don't really know if there's more there yet.
Yeah, I think there's really major holes in pretty much every horse outside of the big two
every other
that you can poke at. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, that's a terrible pick. I struggle to see Josh's picks, but it could happen, I guess. Like Mark's Castellano horse. There's upside there. If the horse steps forward. I think this is a race that if you're going to make those arguments for those kind of outsiders, I think you need to just toss the 2 favorites and spread beyond them. It's not the kind of race where I would advise taking Rattle and Roll plus 2 others or taking both favorites plus 1 or 2 backups. It just have an opinion one way or the other and take a stand.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, FYI, that was a different Tom McNamara, Mark.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, apparently there was another Tom McNamara that
there
won
are
the NHC.
multiple NHC Tommy McNamara.
There are multiple. Yeah, I know. I was surprised as well. Everyone was congratulating him, and he's like,
"Oh my god, I
assumed
it was because he qualifies. He always has those where he qualifies, and he's a very good tournament player. And I just assumed, I guess." So apparently, if your name is Tommy McNamara, you're just a good tournament player. That's what we're going with there,
I guess. So before we move over to Kentucky Downs, the Kentucky Downs is known for having a different bourbon every single day, a bourbon of the day at the bar. I believe the first day was Angel's Envy. So hopefully they have something good when we're there. I think last year it was Calumet 16, which is just kind of, just like random when one day is like Elijah Craig and the other day is like, Angel's Envy, and it's like, hey, here's $150 bottle. Mark's got a nice little single barrel Jack. I don't know if you guys have ever had this. My buddy used to work for a company that did a lot of stuff for Diageo. And so Diageo owns a ton of brands. And so just like going to events and doing stuff, he just got this massive collection of all things Diageo. So like he had bottles of all kinds of Johnny Walker, all kinds of uh, Lagavulin, and then they have their bourbon brands, right? Like Bullet, and this brand, which is IW Harper. You guys ever have this before?
Never had it,
No.
but I've seen it in stores quite a bit recently.
IW Harper
I've never even seen it.
15. It's a 15-year bourbon. And what's really funny about this bottle is it used to retail for $80. 80 about $80 three years ago. And if you think about bourbon prices, 3 years ago, $80 was a lot of money. It still retails for about $80 now. I think it's $89.99. It only went up by $10. But in the bourbon landscape now, I think that's a lot more reasonable, especially for a 15-year bourbon. And so he gave me this bottle because he's moving, and so he's got a bunch of stuff. It is only 86 proof, so it's a really light proof, but it comes in a really cool like decanter style bottle. It's 15 years. I actually had this at we went to the distillery when we were in Louisville. So it's good stuff. So definitely worth a try. But I just thought it was a really cool looking bottle, and it was nice of my buddy to give it to me. So cheers, Dan. I'll have a little sip here for you. And then we'll move on to Kentucky Downs here. Race 8, mile on the turf for 3-year-olds, the Gunrunner Stakes, and wow, is that smooth compared to the foolproof 1792 I was drinking before, going from 110 or 112 proof to 86 proof. It's a big difference. But $1 million purse here, and got a full field here of 10. We got the return of Major Dude, Wadsworth, Talk of the Nation in here. Wadsworth's your 5-2 favorite. Talk of the Nation at 3-1. Major Dude 4-1. Highway Robber at 5-1. You got double digits on everybody else. Caleb, where did you kind of land here?
I didn't. I saw your message that said Saratoga race 11 and then Del Mar Lake pick 5. So.
Oh, no problem. Well, Mark, where did you land then?
Yeah, so I think for me the race really depends on what your take is on Wadsworth, the 9. He's won 2 in a row, going a touch further than this, but normally at Kentucky Downs you want horses that given the uphill front straight and the fact that it tends to be cut a little longer, you tend to want horses that are cutting back in distance a little bit. So I thought Wadsworth was an absolutely massive player in here. Ellis Park turf races have been fine. Everybody that's come out of those has run well. It becomes a little bit of a situation of what happens with the pace in front of him. He's going to need a little bit of pace, but I think that tends to be those horses coming from a little bit off and kind of outside drawn at Kentucky Downs tend to work really well. So I don't know if he's the favorite, but I think for me at least the race sort of begins and ends on your take with him. I do have a really big price that I do like in this race, Josh, but I'll let you throw out because I saw you were on somebody else here.
Yeah, so of the short prices, I think I really like Major Dude in here. I know he is going to be, I think he looks a little slow on speed figures compared to some of the other horses in here. But this is just a really interesting race. Let me see if I can get the right plot here. Sorry, I thought I had all this set up already. So the plot kind of shows Talk of the Nation, the 6 here, kind of being in the lead, this Q1 square, and then you get Major Dude just kind of sitting just behind him, and I think that does set up a pretty good for Major Dude there. I will say though, he might not be the horse I like the most. And Mark, I'm curious if the horse that you wanted to talk about that's a bit of a bomb is the 3 horse.
It is the 3
It is
horse.
the 3 horse.
That's my bomb.
Yeah, and so the 3 horse is probably my top pick in this race at 15-1. You get Gerardo Corrales aboard, who just won the riding title at Ellis Park. And if you go back through the PPs in this horse broke its maiden with Corrales aboard here at Kentucky Downs last year, won by open lengths there, and has got some pretty interesting kind of back form in there. I believe at Aqueduct finished second to Najarok, and then it's just going to get Corrales aboard here going again on the stretch out, and that's just something Mike Maker knows how to do: take these sprinters and stretch them out and have them go. So I don't know. I think if you like the 9, you gotta like the 3 here, especially if you look at the optics plot here for the surface to distance. I mean, they're just basically right on top of each other here. So, of the short prices, I like Major Dude, but the 3 is probably going to be where I have most of my money going through. I see Matthew Bickey here on the 3 and the 9.
Yep.
I don't know if he's looking at bet mix or looking at the plot, but 3 and 9
Might as
both plot out pretty
He
well
might as well
too.
be looking
So
at my handicapping sheet because those are the 2 horses I have that I probably would be using here. But no, I mean, I didn't know if you had a ton more to say there, Josh. But on the 3, this is just kind of screams like a horse that they didn't quite know. That was clearly talented, but they didn't quite know what to do with. They've tried him short, they tried him long. I mean, obviously they tried to they debuted him at turf at 7, then they cut him back to 6. He ran okay. Then they went to a mile in the Breeders' Cup turf, which, and obviously lots of horses show up at the Breeders' Cup and don't run well, huge fields, and lots of things happen. And then they tried to turn him into a sprinter all year. And I don't think his pedigree screams sprinter. I mean, he's at a City of Light. They get a mile fine. And it just seems like maybe this is kind of what he's wanting to do. I love the fact that Corrales is getting back on him. We actually did see today, obviously outside drawn horses were good, but you didn't, I've seen years at Kentucky Downs where you almost wanted to be last coming into the home stretch. And I don't think you wanted to be there today. It seemed like you wanted to be off, get a little bit of a, pocket trip, but speed kind of held on. There were a couple of races where you had an early pace, horse that was really pressing, and they held on for pieces, second or third kind of things at big prices today. So I see no reason that that Corrales can't kind of control this on the front end and try to steal this. I think Gaslight Dancer is really interesting here, and like Josh says, everything out of the Maker Barn, tends to be live, especially Kentucky Downs. He had a couple wins on the day today, and he's getting Corrales up, who they have some sort of disgusting stat. It's like, I guess there wasn't as many starts with the 2 of them together, but they were 50% together last year. So those connections go very, very deep.
Caleb, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to kind of touch on what Mark said. Is that Kentucky Downs is kind of a quirky track, as we all know, and it does sort of feel like multiple years ago there was a year or 2 where everything was coming off the pace. Yeah. But it feels like the last couple of years, it's been a lot more forward. I mean, if you're in the front, when you hit the uphill part of the stretch, it's very difficult to make up ground. And I think it maybe just depends on, it's different last year because they put the rails in, they move the rails every weekend. The amount of rainfall they get kind of changes that as well. So I'm curious. I haven't watched anything, but that's definitely something I'll be looking for because it is a track that I feel is very prone to bias. As far as this race in particular goes, I mean, I think Wadsworth looks pretty good. He had to work awful hard at odds-on favoritism to get the job done last time, but he did eventually get there, so I don't know how much you can really knock him for that. I've seen enough of Major Dude. He doesn't really do anything for me. I thought your 3 was interesting. I don't know if you get that price, but I do kind of agree with both of you guys that he seems to be a horse that wants to go farther than where they've been running in, so I like the stretch out in here. I was kind of curious if either of you guys gave much of a look to the 2 Highway Robber with Jamie Spencer taking the pickup mount, apparently. For Brian Lynch, this is a horse that kind of debuted on dirt. He ran fine. I mean, he won his debut, and then they stretched him out. He didn't do much, but has clearly been a lot better on turf. That makes a ton of sense when you look at that pedigree with Danzig. Hard spun and then Danzig on top, and then Lemon Drop Kill on the bottom. It's a very turfy pedigree. And he won his turf debut and then came back and just missed to Wadsworth, who's going to be your favorite in here, by a head. And that's looking like he had to launch quite the rally to get there. So he might be left with a bunch to do from a pace scenario, but I found him kind of interesting.
Yeah, he makes some sense. I think it's interesting to see Jamie Spencer take the pickup mount. I didn't quite know what to make of him, honestly, Caleb.
Yeah, I honestly didn't even realize that that Jamie Spencer. I thought I saw that Jamie Spencer was nominated, but I thought this was like some Wesley Ward bullshit.
I checked that too.
Where he's just like nominating. He nominates just like random ass European jocks sometimes. But no, I think there's a couple of European horses shipping in for
the next race,
the next race and the race after.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I'm going to mark this though as a question mark, and I'll take a closer look here at that last race. I will say, I think Caleb brought up a good point. Like you really do need to go back and just watch the races from today, this is something that Chase always used to say specifically with bias, but you look at these jockeys and you realize who gets it and who doesn't. I didn't give this horse much of a look when I handicapped this, but I will say one of the people today who definitely understood what was going on was James Graham. So just keep an eye on some of his mounts. He just got it today, and I don't know necessarily. I haven't looked at the historical stats, and I don't know if Foxhound is still in chat, but he probably has him at the ready. I don't know how James Graham normally does at this meet, but today he seemed to really understand what was going on, and that's really important. Like, because we always used to joke, Chase and I would play Remington, and there'd be this huge bias, and you see CJ McMahon doing something real stupid, and you're like, CJ McMahon definitely doesn't do it, and then he murdered a guy, so you definitely know he wasn't really all up there. And Jeffrey Wilson coming in here saying James always rides Kentucky Downs good. So go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say to Caleb's point. I do think I know they changed the hill. I think they took some of the gradient out of the hill, and I think that took some of the closer bias out of the races to some degree. But I will say it did look like there was a pronounced outside bias today. I think it's less. It's less pronounced in the 2-turn races, but in the 1-turn races, there's clearly an outside bias. I don't know if there's necessarily a pace bias, but it's definitely outside. Now, again, I don't know if stats back that up, but from me watching the 10 races today, that's what I noticed.
And I hate to let stats get in the way of a good story, but James Graham was 1 for 32 at Kentucky Downs last year.
Yeah.
So, he has. I agree with you though, because like anecdotally, I feel like he rides well here. So it could have been maybe last year was an anomaly. I don't have more stats to go back farther than that. I remember he's got home some nice prices for me in years past. So maybe last year was a down year, but it'd be nice to see him, get back on top. But I know last year was pretty bad for him.
Yeah, there was a couple where it seemed like he was good. Never mind. I looked it up. James Graham is 1 for 65 career routing at Kentucky Downs. So maybe it was something else. See 4% since 2015. But maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. I'll have to look back.
Bicky with an even better stat. There's the real Bicky.
4% since 2015. Look at that. Yeah, I thought he gave some decent rides today, so I thought that maybe he was going elsewhere. Gaffleone always rides really well here, but
he had a couple suspect rides today.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on. Race 9 here. Music City, the big ass fans Music City Stakes, grade 3 here, $1 million. Start this off. I actually really liked the one horse here. I really like the one horse here, Dance Macabre. This was the horse that won here at Kentucky Downs last year, and that's always an angle I like. Is just coming into this race with really good form. So I think, was that the only horse I used? Oh, I used that, and I gave a look to LJ's Emma as well, but I don't know. I think I might just might single A here with the 1. Coming off that great form and that previous win at Kentucky Downs. Mark, since I apparently tripped Caleb up, why don't we try and get through these next 2 races real quick and get to the meat of it? So,
Yeah.
where did you kind of land here?
Yeah, so I ended up on the 7 and the 9 in this race. I did like the post draw on Dance Macabre. I know historically inside has not been good at Kentucky Downs, so I went to some of the outside horses. The 7 Secret Money for Brendan Walsh. Again, you're getting Gaff up, who is a good local jock. I thought that last out race, the figure in the Lake George came back really big, I actually think that I don't hate the cutback for this one. Who has done done her best stuff at a touch shorter. And then I thought the 9 was interesting. It's a horse that it's odd to see Chad not move a horse onto turf more quickly. But I think she broke her maiden and then she ran nice in the 8 bells. I thought they think they might have been, oh geez, we have a classic distance dirt horse, and they're finally getting her onto turf. Chad's obviously is with all of his stats is very good first time turf. Getting Johnny V up, which I very much like. Johnny V is somebody who's very good at picking up new tracks and picking up new biases whenever you ship him places. So at 10-1, I have no problem taking Johnny V and Chad with the first time turf horse.
I would call her a takeout reducer, but she won't take enough money to really make a difference, I think.
I did look at the 3 a little bit, because this was where I kind of saw Jamie Spencer once again showing up here. The horse might be looked a little slow on speed figures compared to some of the other horses, but I mean, you can't knock the form here for Christophe Clement. So I thought the 2 was one maybe to kind of take a look at. It's working really well, and was working at Saratoga. So maybe this is just one that they couldn't get on the turf quick enough because of all the weather. So maybe this might be interesting. What
you mean? You mean the 3?
3? What did I say?
You said the 2.
The 2. Sorry, yeah, the 3 Queen Picasso here. So
I could see you liking the 2, so I was kind of confused if you were if it was a little bit Freudian kind of a thing.
No. Caleb, I assumed you didn't get a chance to look at that, so we'll just kind of real quick. Mark, where did you land on race 10?
So the $2 million mile race. I ended up I thought Tone, the 2 horse, ton of sense, horse that likes this trip, probably better as a miler historically. I thought a Tone was really interesting in here. And the other horse that I thought was the horse that I would imagine Jamie Spencer shipped over for, that's the number 6 Ancient Rome. There's no way in hell you get that morning line price. If you actually are a Timeform person, Timeform gave that last race a 124, which makes that horse substantially faster than everybody else in this race. And again, I guess Annapolis is in here. Annapolis does have a 125, but I think I've sort of seen enough of Annapolis at this point. I mean, I realize he does win a lot, but I just have never really loved him. So I'll take Jamie Spencer I'll take Jamie Spencer in this one.
Yeah, I honestly thought that this race kind of starts and stops with a Tone. I know this horse has basically kind of gone backwards since winning the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. But this horse ran a nice second here to Some Like a Hot Brown last year. Kind of going back to that same angle, a horse that's run well here in the past. So just firing it right back in this same race gets the cut back here, and so I thought the 2 made a lot of sense. Matthew Bickey here, he loves 5, 2, and 3 here, so he likes the 2 Tone a little bit. He does like the 5 Smokin' Tea here for Shug, who won the Lure, likes the 3 Stitched. Big old long shot here. Won the Wise Dan with Pratt aboard. Apparently only runs well when he gets French jockeys aboard. So he's got 2 wins with Flo. BJ Hernandez is in there. Never mind. But
technically has Pratt up for another win, so that would be 3 wins with French jocks.
Yeah, I did give Get Her Number a little bit of a look here. which it does have 2 wins in 5 starts going on the turf here. I mean, it's pretty far back. But interesting, Peter Miller ships this horse in here, gets Gerardo Corrales aboard. Horse has been working pretty well. So I thought this was an interesting spot for this horse here. And if I remember correctly, plots out pretty well here on the obviously not the surface of distance plot, but on the regular plot here is kind of an off the pace type. We get a speed rate of 48. We got a ride contention. So if someone was going to come from off the pace, I thought maybe this might set up for a horse like the 9 here. So 15-1, I thought would be worth a shot here. But Caleb's gone like 6 or 7 minutes without talking. So I want to get his thoughts in here, especially because we got a really interesting late pick 5 here at Del Mar. Probably I know Caleb probably of the three of us plays Del Mar more than anybody else. So really interested to hear Caleb's thoughts here, especially because race 7 includes probably my favorite turf horse in training in this in all of Mark. Here, you know what? I'm gonna boo myself. In the number 1 du jour.
Oh
in
God,
here.
you really,
So
really, Josh?
hey,
we expect better.
look, I like an underdog story,
No.
right? And Bob Baffert on turf is an underdog. So, anyways, race 7 here, Del Mar Mile, going a mile on the turf. Caleb, tell me who's winning this race.
This race and for that matter, this sequence, I thought was extremely difficult. Very, very hard. I think you can make a case for a lot of horses in here, except for Du Jour. But he could win this race. I've never liked him. I'm not going to bet him in here, but he could win this race for sure. But you can say that about almost over half the field. I think that Exalted and Count Again are probably going to vie for favoritism. Exalted has done nothing wrong since going to turf. He's had some really, really soft trips, just absolutely perfect setups, no adversity whatsoever. And he's done what he's supposed to. So it's hard to fault him for that. But it's kind of tough for me to get to a horse like that as the favorite who's just repeatedly tripped out and maybe he trips out again. I don't know. But I think he could be more vulnerable than his recent form would make you believe. Whereas I think like a horse like Count Again, he looked like a horse that just needed that start off the layoff last time in the Eddie Reed. He ran fine. He really was kind of lumbering late and making up some ground. And he was never going to win that race, but that was his first start and quite a lengthy layoff. And he showed that he still maintains ability. He still competes at this level. So I think he'll be much sharper here off the layoff. So I would actually have Count Again as the horse to beat in here over Exalted. But my top pick's actually a bit of a long shot who is drawn toward the outside, the number 8, War at Sea. So this is another horse that I think is using that last race pretty obviously as a prep. This horse is not a turf sprinter. They've done this before where they gave the horse a turf sprint as kind of a tune-up race before stretching him out. Clearly that race, in my mind, you look at the pedigree, you look at the way he's been campaigned. This is a horse that wants to go 2 turns. And I think that last race was really just, a tune-up. He ran fine for going a distance that's much too short for him. And he was starting to get really good towards, the spring of last year and even into the fall of last year a little bit at Santa Anita and Del Mar. He just missed to slow down Andy, who is a very nice dirt horse. I think he ran 2nd or 3rd in the San Diego handicap, and he's in the Pacific Classic later on. He also beat Cabo Spirit a couple of races back in the Cinema. Cabo Spirit went on to win a grade 2 and just missed by a length in a grade 1. So I think those races were pretty good. I would expect this horse to take a step forward, second off the layoff here. And I think he'll be a little more forwardly placed than most of the major contenders in here. I think he'll get first run. So I like War at Sea on top at a bit of a price, but I do respect Count Again as well.
Yeah, I will say, to your point, War at Sea did get some green words here, especially on that last one. I think you brought it up already, Caleb. Prep, and they expect to improve off that last one. So, I kind of got a question mark next to it. Was seeing the green words kind of made me reconsider the horse. So this might be one that I end up including. Expecting the improvement off that last race. Mark, where did you kind of land here?
Yeah, Caleb already mentioned Count Again, who's one of the horses that I have as my A.
The
My,
favorite. Yep.
yeah, the favorite, shockingly. Who is not the favorite, but keep going. Obviously, it's your thing. The other horse that I would mention is the 7 in here. I'm a Gambler. I know it's really hard to wire at Del Mar, but I've seen Fresu do it, I think, twice now, and I've been on both the horses he was on both times he did it. This is a horse that, second off the layoff, probably takes a step forward here, and I think should get more, or should be, a more controlling, more loose than in that last start in the Wicker. So I really think I'm a Gambler. It doesn't need to take a huge step forward here to be a major player, and to see Fresu in front at every call. So I'm a Gambler at a little bit of a price here.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see I'm a Gambler's PPs next time out, because I have a feeling that race two, that what's going to be the race 2 back, the winner is going to be in italics. Look, poor Mark. Honestly, I'm a little bit memeing here on Du Jour. I think that Count Again is going to be very tough in the spot. The favorite. Okay, probably not the morning line favorite, but I do see Count Again and Exalted vying for favoritism in the spot. Rispoli took a spill today. Looked pretty ugly. He did walk under his own power into the ambulance, so hopefully things are okay. I haven't checked Twitter to see how he's doing, but hopefully he's able to come back and ride for this. But yeah, I mean, you obviously runs anything close to that Shoemaker mile. I mean, he's going to be really tough to beat in this spot. So yeah, I like Count Again. I do like Du Jour a little bit, probably more of a B type, but one nicely here out at the Wicker.
Okay, hold on for a second. Can you explain to me what you like about Du Jour besides the fact that you hate horse racing and love Bob Baffert? Like, what is it that you like about Du Jour?
What are you talking, dude? The horse. I mean, the horse shows up, man. I mean, the horse is pretty consistent. At least on Brisnet, the horse looks very consistent. I don't know what it looks like on Timeform or DRF, but consistent horse. I mean, obviously was, I think, better at was really good at 3. And I just think that now that they've cut him back and aren't running him, going more than a mile, I think he's just become a pretty consistent. He's more of a G3 type horse here, and obviously this is a grade 2, and there's some nicer horses in here, but
if the horse was not trained by Bob Baffert, it would be 10-1 on the morning line.
I mean, it's a turf race. I mean, Bob Baffert doesn't get bet on turf,
and so therefore, by being a Bob Baffert turf horse, the horse should be 20-1. Go on.
Anyways, another horse that I did take a look at is one of the a friend of mine's favorite horses in training, the 6 Visitant, who just seems to love Turfway Park, and has only got one run over the turf, and it was a while back, but is now in the Peter Miller barn. Coming off a bit of a layoff since February. And has got really, really nice works coming in here. And, when you look at the optics plot, is the lone Q1 square here on the standard plot here. So I think he plots out really well here. I think he's super interesting. We'll see if he takes to the turf. It's going to be a bit of a price. It's a Peter Miller horse on turf. I mean, you kind of wish you'd get a little bit better of a jockey than Giovanni Franco, but I'll take a shot at the price here with Visitant. I think Count Again is going to be tough in this spot. I'm using Du Jour for the memes. But I'm going to be 1-3-6 in this spot. Caleb, anything else you want to talk about here?
No, I think we talked about 3, 4. I do kind of like Mark's 7 a little bit. I kind of see a lot of the same angles he does with I'm a Gambler. Only horse I wasn't sure what to do with was the 5, Balnikov. I love me some Hector. This horse is good when he shows up, but boy, does it just feel like nobody knows when he's going to show up because he definitely lays some eggs. I don't know what to do with that horse, but that's to me, he's the horse that could win at 8 or 10 to 1, and you feel really dumb, or he could go off at 7 to 2 and run sixth, and you feel really dumb either way. So I'm not really sure what to do with him.
I was really confused why Hector got off the 9 because I like the 9 more than I think I like the 5, and I'm looking at it going, okay, well Hector's got no better than I do, so I was really confused. Kind of just downgraded both of them on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a couple other horses in here that we didn't even talk about. That I mean, honestly, I think over half this field, if they win, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, even a horse like the 10, Irideo. Irideo's run second to Exalted twice. Last time, I don't know what happened. It looked like he was a bit rank last time out. But I mean, he's run a bunch of really nice races here. So I mean, and Tiago is good for at least one fuck you every day. So I mean, maybe
Tiago's been usable all meet. Honestly, he's been riding kind of okay.
But
yeah.
Well, but we could sit here and talk. I did highlight Charles, who loves du jour, so I'm not alone there. Matthew Bickey is on the 7, 3, and 10. He likes the 7. I'm a gambler. The 3 count again, and the 10 Irideo, who we just talked about here. So I think there's lots of ways you can go in this race. I think Caleb did already point out it's a tough race and it's a tough sequence altogether. Speaking of horses that people hate, and for some reason I can't quit. Race 8, the Torrey Pines here, grade 3. And Mark, you see the number 1. I got a C written next to it.
Okay. I thought you were gonna gush about FISA in here, and then I was. Gonna have an aneurysm.
No, Feza, I think is a fade in the spot for me.
Oh yeah.
So Feza, I mean, I don't know. With a lot of these big name trainers, I always feel like once they run that clunker at a short price, I mean, you just can't trust them anymore. I'll let them beat me at a short price again, right? And this horse is 8 to 5 in the morning line. This horse is going to be 4 to 5. It's going to take all the money. So I'm looking just to the outside with Ceiling Crusher here, who's another one who did disappoint a little bit last time out. At what is it, the Fleet Treat or it's coming back here. I think looks to kind of be your speed. There is some other fast horses in this spot here, but if I looked at the optics plot here, get a good idea. You get the Q1 square. So I thought it was a little bit more interesting here than Feza. I just can't trust Feza in this spot whatsoever. I will say the interesting part about this race, and also I like the 10 getting back to a route distance. Last time disappointed was going 7 furlongs. I think stretching out just a little bit longer, I think only helps the 10's cause here. But I will say, I think the 10 is probably kind of your speed of the speed here. But Optics has got this as a fast pace. Optics has got this as a direct contention. I haven't looked at Timeform. What's Timeform say? Is Timeform got this at a fast pace or?
It does say fast pace.
Yeah, it's fast. Yep.
So I don't know how I'm going to use this horse yet, but there's only one closer in this race, and like I said, looks to be pretty slow. I haven't really seen much improvement, but it's the one Justique here for John Sheriffs. Won a nice maiden race last year and just never really moved forward. Was one of those 2-year-olds. It just didn't seem to move forward. Won the Desi Arnaz. I thought this horse was going to be, a horse that might get run in the Breeders' Cup or become something, and just never really, I think, turned the page. Came back at 3, still kind of just running the same speed figures. But Mike Smith gets aboard again, and Mike Smith and John Sheriff's, he tends to ride most of John Sheriff's Live's horses. And I just think that he's going to get a pace setup in this spot. So I like Justique as being kind of the lone closer in this spot. I mean, everyone else I think is an E-type or an EP type in here. So I'm going to take a shot here with Justique as maybe a B or C type to go along with my 10 in this spot. Caleb, where did you kind of land?
Yeah, rather unoriginally, I actually did end up on Feza in this race, and I don't like Feza, I'll admit, but there's just nowhere else to go. This field is bad. I mean, Ceiling Crusher gets beat at 2-5 against Cowbreds last time. Yeah, Justique has never run a race good enough. I tried so hard to get to her, Josh, for the same reason you did, is that it looks like somebody might come running late, and Del Mar has played that way most of the meet to these off the pace runners, but yeah, I think at some point, pace, trip, and bias, you have to have a certain threshold of talent, and I just haven't seen that from Justique. So, yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't really get around Feza, and it's not that I really think she's all that good. I just think that there's a lot of horses in here that would struggle to contend for an N1X allowance, and Feza is a legitimate stakes horse, maybe a West Coast stakes horse, but a stakes horse nonetheless. So, I don't need to talk her to death too much. I think she is the horse in here. The only other one I tried to look at a little bit, and I imagine Mark will talk about this horse, was the number 4, Coffee in Bed. Only because I thought that she's kind of the wild card in here to me. She is, or at least has been, a closer, and I feel like she's not really exposed. So I kind of thought that she might be one that could improve a little bit here. She's bred to appreciate the stretch out a little bit to a mile. Not really sure how, if she will or not, but she's the only one I sort of could make the case for, I thought.
Yeah, Caleb knows me a little too well, and my top choice in here is the 4, Coffee in Bed. I thought she's second off the layoff here. This should be the race. Lightly raced. There still should be some upside here. Mike Smith off is about the best, angle in California, it seems, because you tend to get prices when that happens. And Mike Smith is massively overrated. So, and honestly, Juan was on the 10 last time out, and he hops off from the second choice on the board to go ride a price. I have a feeling there's probably a bit more here, and we'll know. These are the types of risks though that I really kind of enjoy taking. Bred for this, and she does probably need a little pace help up front, but I think there should be enough pace in here that she can, she can make it happen. And if anybody can invent a trip, it's Juan. The other horse I was a little interested in is the 6, Anywho, the Sadler horse. Barrios ends up landing here. I thought she was, a horse that, obviously they're still trying to figure out what she wants to do. And they've been playing around with the distances, but I thought that 7 furlong race back in, March of this year was actually a really nice effort and isn't that much slower. So maybe getting her back to a little bit further of a trip, is something that she really wants to do. And, I think, I do like the fact that they're trying to find a jock that fits with her. And, Hector was on her, in a bit of a speed effort last out, and she should have a little bit of turn of foot. And I thought she's a, interesting player in here. If you're trying to get past the somebody like a Faiza, who I think you have to try to beat in here, given exactly what Josh said about her.
Anything else in this race? Who would have thought that was the race that Caleb was going to be chalk eating these off? But the race 9, the Green Flash, grade 3 here, going 5 furlongs on the turf. You got a oversubscribed field here. You got 15, I think only 12 draw in. So 13, 14, and 15 are your also eligibles in here. This was another race that to me just had a heck of a lot of need the lead type, just straight speed. And I ended up kind of going back to the well on a horse that I had all kinds of money going through at Churchill Downs on Derby Day. That's the 8 Motorious. Ran second to No Balls, who I also had, and I should have been smart enough to play the exacta here, but I was not, and I ended up getting bounced out of the pick 6 there. The next race, I forgot what race, but I think Motorious is going to kind of sit similar trip as he did in that last race. Is going to be one that wants to come from off the pace, and I just think that there's a ton of pace in this spot. So I think this is going to set up for someone coming from off of it. The 8 Motorius, I think, makes a ton of sense. Another horse that makes a ton of sense that you probably won't get any kind of price on because it's my racehorse is the 6 Lane Way, who they started off on the dirt and ended up I don't know, just kind of finding new life here at 6 as a turf sprinter, going down the hill and. It does have some nice races going 5, including this race last year, where he finished second to Lieutenant Dan. And I just thought this was another one that kind of set up nicely, coming from just off the pace here. Did beat Motorius last time out, going down the hill. So I thought the 6 is another horse that kind of set up as being off the pace. And we talked about Juan. Juan finds his trip more often than not, especially out west. And if there's one thing I've learned, if Vinny Chemino can win on the horse, anybody can win on the horse. So the 10 brand here for John Sadler and Juan Hernandez. Last won a humongous race last time out at Kentucky Downs. On a bit of a layoff for Sadler, that's not really a problem. He's 18% off a long layoff. He's not having the best of meets here, but that last figure was humongous, and I think that Juan getting aboard here, I think makes a ton of sense. So I think the 10 brand makes a bunch of sense. Motorius is my top pick, the 8, and I'm also using a little bit of laneway here, the 6. Mark, where did you land?
Well, your top 2 choices, or my top 2 choices, were the 2 horses you just talked about. So let me talk about horses you haven't talked about yet. I thought somebody on the inside, like the number 1 Fast Buck, was, so sort of one of those interesting horses. One, has won his last 2. Herrera was up for the 2-back effort. Has a ton of speed. Obviously, he's wired both of those fields. I don't know if the intent here is to go to the front end, because I think there are faster horses drawn outside. So I sort of wonder about his trip.
That was an accident.
Oh,
I went to grab my fidget cube and I hit the.
It was pretty smooth though.
That was pretty smooth. I thought I was being memed for something, but I was just a little disappointed. But a horse that does like to find the winner's circle. He's 5-9 lifetime, and perfect going this 5 furlong trip. So I would imagine they're gonna send and try to hold on and and wire this. So I thought he was a interesting player in here. And the other horse I thought, obviously we've talked about Hector Barrios on the turf. I thought the 3 Turn on the Jets was pretty darn interesting in here. Barrios had a win going this trip, last out in an optional 100. So we should know what he has. A horse that is going to be probably mid pack with this, but I always like these turf sprinters that aren't need the lead types and can close and can clearly pass other horses. Horse that probably needs to take a step forward off from that last effort, but not a huge step forward. And and again, this is another one where you're getting clearly handles this circuit, clearly handles this trip, and coming out third off the layoff should be in really good form.
Loves Del Mar.
Loves
3
Del
for
Mar.
3.
3 for 3 at Del Mar, 32% jock trainer. I mean, and there's and you're getting 6 to 1. A lot of value there.
Yeah, Charles asking, no love for the 2 here. Caleb, do you like the 2?
I do like the 2 actually. So my top pick is the 3 who Mark just talked about. And then my second pick was your initial top pick, Josh, on Notorious. But I do think the 2 Kid Corleone is interesting in here. If you look back at the form, they debuted this horse on the turf. So clearly the expectation was there that maybe we have a turf horse. At some point, they thought this horse might want grass. He didn't run poorly. That was a big field. It was his debut. There's a lot you can like there. They eventually put him on the dirt and he won, and they just kind of kept him there after that. But I really do kind of like him getting back onto the lawn here. I think he ran a very good race in the Big Crosby. That's a grade 1. Lost to the Chosen Vron, Dr. Shivel, and Anarchist. Obviously Anarchist just came back last weekend to win. It was the Bing Crosby again, right? No, what was it? I forget which race he won, but he just won a big stakes race last weekend. I forget what it was. So I mean, there's really good dirt form here, and you already kind of know that he handles the turf. So it was the Pat O'Brien. That's what it was. But he handles the turf. So yeah, I do like this horse. I do kind of share your concern with the pace scenario. It's a lot tougher to wire Del Mar than it is, Santa Anita. It does feel like there's some legit speed in here. He won't be out there by himself, but we've seen Kent give some pretty crafty rides before, trying to navigate a slightly off the pace trip with a horse that looks like he needs the lead. So yeah, I do kind of like that horse, Charles. Not like a top pick or anything, but I think he'll be pretty long on the board, and I think he's very usable. But yeah, my top pick is just a 3, Turn on the Jets. I think this is a race where it's important to distinguish true 5 furlong turf sprinters compared to their 6 and 6.5 furlong counterparts. Because I do think, personally, a horse like Lane Way is not as effective at 5 as he is going down the hill at 6.5. So he's one that I think will take money, just if nothing else, off my racehorse, that I'm not sure that I really want him at 5. I mean, he ran fine in those 2 races, but I just think he's better at 6.5. There's others in here that fit that same profile. I think Brand's another one who just seems to be better going slightly longer. But yeah, for me, I think the 3 is my top pick. The only other horse I thought was a little bit interesting was the number 9, Cherubic Factor with Freyshoe up. This is a horse he's been in really good form, albeit against some weaker company. He is a 5-year-old gelding, so it's fair to question kind of how much ceiling there is left. But he's been running some really good races on the turf sprints lately. I mean, he's got 4 wins out of his last 6 starts, and he hasn't missed the board in any of those, from anywhere from 5 all the way up to 6.5. So he's one that probably does need that step forward, but Peter Yurton's barn has been very hot, and I thought he was kind of intriguing in here at what should be a pretty nice price.
Yeah, and interesting. I was just going through optics, and I missed this earlier, but they had this noted as a trouble trip last time out. They got the trouble plus denoted there.
I watched that race. It was probably minor. I don't know that it really. I mean, he won the race, so it clearly wasn't that bad. I think he just he had to wait a little bit coming into the stretch, but then when the rail went away, he was able to pass up the inside. I mean, he probably should have won by another half length or length, but I don't think it was massive trouble to suggest he was going to run significantly better. But yeah.
Fair enough. Anything else in there, Mark?
No, you guys covered it pretty well.
Pacific Classic, 1.25 miles here, 3-year-olds and up. The West Coast Travers, as Mark likes to call it, because everything is New York centric to him.
I've never said that once in my life.
I don't think you've ever seen that either.
Okay, cool. Just make
for
sure
as much dumb stuff as you said, you've never said that before. So
I mean, I've said a lot of dumb stuff. That's never something I've ever said. So
going 1.25 miles here. Caleb, I got to ask you this question, and because I know Mark, if I say this, Mark will say, yes, you are being an idiot. Am I being an idiot for liking Senor Buscador in this spot?
No, not at all.
No,
that's actually my top pick in here. So yeah,
I love Senor Buscador in this spot. I love me some cheap speed. I love me some speed, but man, I'm on the wrong race there. What the heck? Did I skip a race? No, I didn't. Okay, sorry. But I don't know, man. A lot of the speed in this race just doesn't. I don't know. I can't trust it. I mean, your leader is supposed to be Arabian Night here, and he lost in the Haskell. And he was, heavily favored, or he was favored. He was favored off that layoff, and I don't know. I can't trust that horse. And then you start getting Slow Down Andy. I mean, maybe Go Rocket Ride, makes a bit of sense there in the front end. But I think really most of the quality in this field is coming from off the pace. And I think that Senor Buscador, I mean, that San Diego handicap was great. And I see no reason why he can't maybe pair up that effort here, and it makes him very, very dangerous. If you look at the optics plot, I mean, he's the biggest square. Yeah, he's sitting in Q4, but you got most of these horses there in the front end. So I think that he is going to get a race flow that sets up for him a little bit, especially if we get a fair track. So I think Senor Buscador just makes a ton of sense. I think of the short prices, I'm not interested really in Go Rocket Ride in this spot. I think you wanted him last time out. I thought a pretty weak Haskell field. I think there's maybe a little bit more quality in this race. I think what Arabian Night is, and Caleb bets every single horse that's got Night in it, and I don't think he's going to have Arabian Night anywhere on his tickets. So that tells you, who was was it Oil Can Night that ran the other day?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were all over that. And what did he win at? He won at some stupid price, didn't he?
It was huge. He was like 15-1 or something. Yeah, it was huge.
But I do think that there is one Baffert horse in this race that does make a bit of sense, and that's the 5 Defunded. If you're going to take a shot with one of the Baffert horses, I think you kind of cross the line through the last one. And that's, like I said, if you're trying to get to this horse, I think the California and the Gold Cup, they fit in this spot, and I think Defunded, makes a bunch of sense in this spot. I know. Let me pull up the actual PPs here. But I think of the short prices, Defunded the one that I would want. Probably should have won last time out. I'll give him another shot. And I do think that he has run a little bit better going a little bit longer. So I'll go ahead and I'll give him a shot here, going back to a mile and a quarter like he did in the Gold Cup. Once again, Juan Hernandez seems to always work out a trip on any horse. He seems to ride routes better. He's winning at 32% while routing, which is just an insane number. So I like Defunded in this spot. I like the 8 Senor Buscador at a price. Caleb, where do you kind of land?
Yeah, so I share your view of the race a little bit. I do like Senor Buscador. I think that's a great price for him, and I think he'll probably get it just given the connections involved. So I do really like him in here. I'm a little worried that he hasn't really put together 2 good races in his career, so that's kind of my concern with him. But at 10-1, I'm fine with kind of taking that shot there. I don't like either Baffert horse, to be honest with you. I do think that Arabian Night, the Haskell is not good. I kind of agree with Road Warrior. I don't think that was a very good race. It was supposed to be good, but I just don't think that it was. We saw Mage come back and run quite terrible in the Travers, and I think we're seeing a lot of that Kentucky Derby form become a little bit exposed at this point. So I don't need Arabian Night. I mean, maybe he goes out there and gets an easy lead because I don't see a ton of quality speed in here. So maybe he gets out there and just walks the dog and Baffert, wins another one. But if that happens, I won't have him. I don't really like Defunded either. He was supposed to run better than that last race. His trip was fine, maybe a little bit wide, but that was a time when wide and off the pace was really good at Del Mar. So it's hard for me to really justify that. For me, it's a 5-year-old gelding for Bob Baffert. His horses typically don't run this long. They don't run at this age, and they don't maintain that level of performance while being raced this aggressively. I think this is a horse I've been kind of waiting for the wheels to fall off, and I'm wondering if maybe that's not the first sign. So for him, I don't like either Baffert. I do like Senor Buscador. Another horse or two that I kind of looked at was the number 7, Slow Down Andy. This is a horse that I don't know that he really wants to go a mile and a quarter. That's kind of the big concern I have with him. But in the event that the speed kind of does come back, I don't see a big speed duel up front. I mean, I think Slow Down Andy could get the lead, but is more likely to sit second. I actually would love Mario to put this horse on the front. He tends to get a little bit rank whenever he doesn't get the lead, but he's so much better when he's used aggressively. I don't think he's going to go out there and send hard enough to get in front of Arabian Night. I just don't. But I do think that if Mario can find a way to get this horse to settle, this horse has a lot of ability. He's run some really nice races. His dirt mile race was quite strong. He ran a good race in the San Diego Handicap. So I do like him a bit in here. And the other one was the number 11 Skinner, who is maybe the male version of Justique. I can't really tell yet. But he is a horse that, of all the horses I think are certain to appreciate a mile and a quarter, he is the top of that list. He's run well in pretty much all of his career starts, -1. He is a sort of ploddy kind of runner. He's not super dynamic. He doesn't have that push button acceleration, which is why I think this distance might be good for him. Hector can kind of try to save some ground, make one big run, because I do think he's run some good races. He was just beaten by Go Rocket Ride, Practical Move a few times, Mandarin Hero. So I'm not sure. how good he is. I know a lot of people liked him in the Kentucky Derby off of his Santa Anita Derby effort, where he was very wide and had a bit of a trip that day. But yeah, he's one that just kind of looking for a new face, I guess. I find him a little bit interesting. But yeah, my top pick will be Senior Buscador, followed by Slow Down Andy and Skinner.
Yeah, so Josh, you do realize the Travers is a 3-year-old restricted race, and the Pacific class is a
Whitney,
3 and
whatever.
up race.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they are
Woodward.
apples, completely apples and oranges, and not even remotely related. With all of that said, yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more with Arabian Night. I think he was very exposed in his Haskell performance. That he does not want to go this far, and that that the sort of Derby form horses are probably not that great. I think Arabian Night is an absolute fraud, but he probably ends up going off your favorite here, and I love that because I can go someplace else. But I didn't really have any great places to go because I think this race is absolutely terrible. With that said, I ended up on Go Rocket Ride. It seems to be the horse that still has some upside, hasn't proved himself yet to be a fraud. Won the Haskell, albeit I don't know how great the company was, but I think I want the 3-year-old that has more upside than necessarily picking an older horse that I kind of know what they are. I think I very much agree with Caleb on some of his take on somebody like a Defunded, who the wheels eventually have to come off, and it feels like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I don't know if this is the time, but it feels like, I don't know. I never thought that much of him to begin with. He felt like he was just beating up on soft West Coast company with all those wins. So I'll probably be like, if I play this sequence, 90 or 95% of my money will just go through Go Rocket Ride, and it is what it is. And I probably get beat by your price and the I don't know what the hell was the horse's name, Senior Buscador.
I'll be okay with that.
It is a little weird. Now that I think about it, though, Mark. I mean, I know you're talking about how the race is, but I mean, the Travers really is the race for Saratoga, right? That's considered like the right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
sure.
the same with Pacific Classic. It's just I never really thought about it that the Travers, right, being the kind of like the feature race of the meet, is a 3-year-old race, whereas the Pacific Classic is for older. Because like the which is the one that's still here, the Whitney or the Woodward?
Whitney.
Whitney, and then the Woodward's
Woodward
got moved to.
yeah, got moved south. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, go ahead.
different divisions. I think the reason the Travers is famous is it's sort of that, like, oh, you go run the Derby, you run the Preakness, you run the Belmont, then you go run the Haskell, then you go run the Travers, right? Like that's the progression of your 3-year-old campaign. And the Travers tends to be where you see those horses coming off the Derby trail. How do they stack up against the new shooters? That's what it makes it exciting. Pacific Classic tends to be that sort of class test. Those 3-year-olds who were good West Coast horses that are going first time versus those handicap and older horses. So how do they really stack up versus those that deeper company, which it probably makes it more of a competitor to the Gold Cup than it does necessarily anything else.
I will say I do see Arabian Night winning a Grade 1 this year.
Going 7 furlongs?
Yep, the day after Christmas.
The Malibu.
The Malibu.
Oh, the
for
Malibu.
3-year-olds.
There it is. There it is.
The biggest fraud of a Grade 1. Like, yeah, it's literally 5 days before the end of the 3-year-old season. They're still running a restricted 3-year-old race. Those crooks.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Although I probably would rather have Fort Bragg in that spot. But anything else in this race?
The race is terrible.
I think it's a good race, but
I think it's a good race. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go. I mean, there's probably 6 horses that could win that wouldn't totally surprise me. I mean, I think it's a nice race.
I mean, this is what we have.
It's a very good betting race. I will give it to you. It's a very good betting race.
Oh, here we go. Matthew Bickey. More than once tonight, Mark has said a race is terrible. I am interested in what you think makes a race bad. I look at them in 2 ways: top to bottom numbers on average class, best speed, L3. What else is that? Oh, that's it.
Bickey's way smarter than I am. I mean, I'm not even going to go there. But for me, a good race is a race where it's a competitive field, right? Like it's Hey, there's a 10 horse field and I can make a case for 5 or 6 of them pretty easily. Those are really good races to me. When I look at something like the Pacific Classic, I'm like, oh, do I want the Baffert, the other Baffert, or the Mandela horse coming out of a suspect race? Like, that to me is just, I don't know, it's throwing darts. Like, I don't enjoy that kind of race. And if you want to make a case, we talked about those 3 Kentucky Downs races. I know Caleb didn't cap them, but those 3 races I think are all good races. They're big competitive fields. You can make a case for a lot of horses. There's a lot of angles. Depending on different approaches, you're going to come at those races very differently, and there's a ton of value to be found. This race just isn't that.
So Matthew,
your argument goes against what you just said. You're like, oh,
I sort of did contradict myself,
a favorite out of a suspect race. Like, if you have Knox against the 3 favorites, it's a good betting opportunity, and it should be a good race.
Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, my argument is there's not a horse I love. There's not a horse that I'm super excited to bet. There's not a horse I'm really interested in. It's sort of like, oh, I guess I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion. I didn't find it a very interesting betting race. I realize you guys are on some prices. I mean, if you're right, good for you. And I realize you're gonna get your value there. So good on you guys. But I just didn't have a solid opinion there, and it's just not something I'm interested in playing.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
It's also more criteria. It's got to be either in the state of New York, it's got to be Assiniboia Downs or Delta Downs.
Just imagine if Castellano was riding somebody in here. Mark would say this was like the greatest betting race that he's seen in 2 weeks.
And some Morley too.
Oh my god!
Oh goodness, he'd be like, "This is easy game." There was one horse in here, I know we've probably talked about this race way too long, but there was a horse in here, Caleb. I tried to make a case for really, really bad, and you know who it is.
In the Pacific Classic.
In the Pacific Classic, there's a horse I tried to make a case for really badly. This horse always makes my tickets.
Let me scroll through. I forget who's even in this race. Oh, is it Tripoli?
No.
Oh, Stiletto Boy.
Stiletto Boy.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, if he runs back to that Santa Anita handicap or the Oak Lawn race, I mean, you squint a little bit. I think
I squinted real hard. I tilted my head a little bit. I think he's a tough one to get to.
Yeah, Matthew's saying it's a second choice.
Yeah.
I think this is look. If he won though, like it wouldn't surprise me. Which, like I said, like to me makes this a really interesting race. Like, yeah, I landed on one of the Bafferts and a Price, but this is just another race where, like, I think if 2/3 of the field wins, right? If Skinner wins, who you liked, I'm not going to be like absolutely shocked. I'm going to be mad that I didn't use him, but it's not like it's going to be like, oh my goodness, I couldn't have seen that coming. So I thought it was a bit of a wide open race.
Like, look at the number 10. I'm not advocating for him, Piroli. I think he's the longest shot, or maybe second longest shot in the field. And 2 races back at 1.25 miles, he was beaten by Defunded by a length. I mean, based off that piece of form, he's a contender in here. Now, I don't like him. I don't really think he can win, but if he does win, I go back and look at that. It's quite easy to say, oh shit, at 20-1, maybe I should have had a ticket with him. Yeah. So I agree. It's easy to kind of really drill down and make arguments for a lot of horses here.
Yeah, and I think Matthew Bickey pointing out, right, because he does everything with BetMix. Obviously it sees that big 1.25 mile race. We're going at 1.25 mile here. BetMix is gonna move that up. So and the fact he finished second in that race. So yeah. All right, we're gonna close this out here. Going 1 3/8 on the turf, Del Mar handicap, presented by the Japan Racing Association. I don't know why I said that, but it just was right there. And I had a lone A in this spot. And I don't know if like Caleb, you mentioned how tough these races were. I don't know if I just got tired and sick and tired of capping these races, and so I just picked one horse and I was just like done with it. Or if I really think this horse is a single, but I don't know. Where did you kind of land here?
I did not have a single, so kudos if you came up with one. I do think it's a tough race. So I had a couple of horses in here. I guess the horse I actually might put on top, and I don't know how this keeps happening to me, but I keep ending up on this one particular jockey like week after week at Del Mar and just keep being let down over and over. But that's the number 4, Missed the Cut, with your boy up, Josh, Jose Valdivia Jr. This is a horse that was running really well overseas. He had a win at Ascot, in a handicap race. Very impressive, 4.5 length win. Tried a couple of Group 2 and Group 3s and didn't really embarrass himself. That Group 3 over in Saudi Arabia was actually extremely strong. I mean, Mossadaf is a very talented horse. Dubai Future is a very nice horse. So 4th by 14, I would even upgrade that a little bit. That was a very deep field for the level. And then for some inexplicable reason, they put this horse on dirt. And I don't have the foggiest idea why they thought that was a good idea after bringing this horse over from Europe. But for whatever reason, I think they finally came to their senses. You can look at the work tab. He has 2 turf works on his last 3 works. They seem to be quite quick. One with a couple bullets down there. He hasn't run terribly in those races. I mean, if you like Senor Buscador in the Pacific Classic, then you can't be too upset about what Miss the Cut did in the San Diego. But I really like him getting back to turf in here. And the other thing that I think is interesting is I do think those dirt races maybe put some speed into this horse. And there is no speed in this race. I mean, I don't know who makes the lead. I guess you could squint and maybe think, maybe it's the 2 or maybe it's the 3 or the 4.
The 4 has got to go, right?
Well, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And it's kind of why I landed on the 4, was just that I think he gets a huge tactical advantage in a race where all the major contenders aren't just closers, but they are generally deep one-run type of closers. So I'm actually going to go with the 4 here as my top pick. I did have a few others that I thought were pretty interesting as well, but none so that are probably going to be quite the price that I think the 4 will be. So I'll kind of see what Mark liked first.
Ouch, that's painful.
Mark, I hope you didn't single the 5.
No, I did not single the 5 because I don't really know. Well, there were some jock moves here that I was found a little suspect. I sort of scratched my head at. No, honestly, my top choice in here is the 7, 911 Turbo. Horse that has been in really, really good form. Has a win at Del Mar this meet. Has won 4 in a row now. And 5 of the last 6. Kind of gets this trip. I realize the figures are a touch light on this one, and they're definitely taking a class test, and I mean, good for them for taking a shot. But you're getting Roman Vasquez. He's a solid, very good jock. I like that this horse likes to get likes to get his photo taken. And again, has just been in a horse that had took forever to break his maiden, took it forever to figure out, seems to kind of be putting it together finally. So I thought 911 Turbo was really, really interesting in here. There's a couple of other horses in here. I didn't really have a super strong opinion though. So I'll land on a bit of a price on the 7.
I did have a super strong opinion in this race. And like I said, maybe it was just laziness. I landed on the 9 horse. Planetario here. You get Hector Barrios aboard. You get him coming back over here from the United Nations, and the figure came back pretty decent. I will say that generally Brisnet figures, as the distance gets longer, tend to get higher. But I think running anything in that 100 over 100 range, I think puts you in the conversation, at least in the spot. Is going to be coming from off the pace, but I do think that this horse does have a heck of a late kick. Mile and 3/4, won a nice race at Santa Anita. And I know this horse isn't Argentinian, but right next door, Brazil, going long on the turf. So I'm going to like that. But no, I thought that this horse made a ton of sense here. They brought this horse over from Brazil, and they immediately started sending it long on the turf. And I think has just kind of improved, the last couple starts here. Barrios knows how to ride this horse here. So, I don't think he's running into any type of, horses like he did in the United Nations. So, I think he fits in here perfectly, and he's the only horse that I have kind of a strong opinion on here. At 4-1, he'll probably he might go off as your favorite though. I think there's another horse in here that's 3-1, but Brisnet seems to really like this horse.
10's 3-1.
Yeah, 10 3-1 but
10 will be your favorite, I think.
You think so?
You
Yeah,
think so?
I think
Even
they'll be
with
close. I
Barrios
think they'll be
getting off?
close though. I think they'll be close.
I think 10 will go off your favorite. 9 might be second choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to see like. So I saw the 9 on optics, and I'm like, oh, this is a huge square. I'm going to key this horse. But the more I looked at him, I'm like, I don't really know. Like his one good race here kind of came at that extreme marathon distance, 1.75 miles, and I kind of wonder if he's cutting back 3 furlongs relative to that race, and the United Nations didn't. I mean, therapists I don't think would scare anybody in this field, nor would catnip. So I wasn't sure. I like the horse.
You stopped one short though.
Yeah,
I know.
Red Knight would scare a lot of people. It would scare you too because you'd be all in.
I would be all over Red Knight. So yeah.
So didn't Therapist just have a win?
What's that?
Didn't Therapist just have a win?
Yeah, in the United Nations.
In the United Nations. Yeah, he hasn't raced.
Was that the last one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I like the horse. I'm not dunking on him or anything, but it removed me from my initial gut feeling, which was yours probably, is like, I can key this horse, to I need to use this horse, but I probably want some coverage elsewhere.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's fair.
Yeah,
so
I took.
Who else did you have, Mark?
I was going to say that the 10 was the other horse that I had. We all, I think, like the 9. The 10 is the horse that Barrios gets off from. Juan gets up. Obviously, you're getting a fairly solid replacement. And another horse that if you believe some of those figures, this is the Gold Phoenix should be a massive player in here. Not a horse that tends to string together wins in a row, which is a little bit of a concern. I wonder if the horse has sort of bounced off that Ed Reed performance, and seems to be a horse that maybe fires off the layoff, first off the layoff, and then the next couple are not as good. But it would not be a shocker in here at all, and a horse that has proven that the 5-year-old can get this distance.
Yeah, I just have a hard time. I had a hard time separating the 5, the 6, the 9, and the 10. To me, they all kind of look like the same horse.
Agreed. Completely agreed.
So I struggled with just saying, I want these 2, but not those 2, or I'm going to single this one, which is why I kind of audibled to some of the more outsider kind of horses, I guess, like the 4, and I did like your 7 as well, Mark, on the big class jump. But yeah, any one of the 5, 6, 9, 10 could win, but if you're not going to use them all, I struggle finding out how to separate them.
Fair enough. Anything else on this race?
What you guys?
I want to touch on what Matt said, because I had the exact same thought. Like I looked at this one horse win the day, and I'm like, this horse shouldn't be 50 to 1 in here. I don't know that he probably won't make any of my tickets, but this horse can run. His 2 turf races at this distance, at this track, were fine, and that was last year as a 3-year-old. He's probably a little bit better now. He's probably a little bit faster. These aren't some total bum connections. Like, I don't think he wins this race. I mean, I really don't. But he shouldn't be 50 to 1. I think he's a big player to maybe run up underneath. So I completely agree with what Matthew's saying, because I looked at this horse for a while, and I feel like the line maker maybe just got lazy.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you, because those turf races are way too good, and they fit way too closely. And I would take him over other horses in this race because the figures fit on those turf races.
He's 20 to 1 here, not 50 to 1.
Yeah, he's been campaigned very oddly, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean he should be 50 to 1, right? He's getting back on the surface he should be on. I guess the question I had, what did you guys do with the 5 in here?
I put him in a box with the 6, 9, and 10, and I drew one name out of a hat.
Okay,
I assumed you were gonna single based off the name, Mark.
It is close to a single. I think I basically bet that horse every time it's ever run. Yes, yeah. So, but I didn't quite know what to do here. I mean, obviously, getting Fresu up. It looks like Rispoli is okay, so it's interesting that he hops off, but. Yeah, another player in what I think is again, this is a very good betting race. This is actually a really interesting race. I know Bicky was beating me up on saying races sucked. This is actually a cool race. This is a fun one. So
yeah, of the 5, 6, 9, 10, 5's probably the first one I throw out, just because this feels like a new distance for him. It feels like they'd have tried it by now if they thought this one he really wanted. So, but maybe he gets better. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go.
Yeah, I think that the distance to the stretch out is a little bit of a head scratcher here, but I don't hate it. So,
yeah. So that should do it for us. I think it's going to be it's a really nice card on Saturday at Del Mar. I think all the cards at Del Mar have been really good. I think it's going to be a fun card on Saturday. I think Kentucky Downs card looks good. If you Follow us on Twitter or follow me on Twitter. Saturday, we'll be running a private Kentucky Downs contest from the Discord. So if you're not in the Discord, just hit me up on Twitter. I'll send you the link. And we'll figure out an amount. We'll probably do like $50 or something, because I know people were saying $15 is too little, but I didn't feel like depositing, and I only had $15 in my horse tourneys account. So we made it a $15 tournament today. But yeah, maybe we'll do a $50 tournament or something on Saturday. So just ping me. I'll send you the link. I'll get it set up probably sometime tomorrow. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you, Matthew, Road Warrior, Charles. Who else did we see in chat? We saw
a bunch of people in and out. Charles has been chatting.
John Judge was in here. Jeffrey Wilson, and Foxhound, Stephen Fox. Yeah,
Uncle Sully.
Uncle Sully here from the start. So shout out to you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out in chat, and we'll catch you guys later. Catch some winners. Jose Valdivia Jr.